Joining me now are two of the state's most popular bloggers. From the left, Blake Rutherford of blakesthinktank.com, and from the right, Jason Tolbert of the TolbertReport.com. Together with Talk Business, they form the Arkansas Election Line, which has been rating the high-profile races across the state. Gentlemen, welcome back to the program.
Good to be here. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Well, in the Arkansas governor's race, an unforeseen campaign issues kind of surfaced. The Arkansas Democrat-Gazette's been reporting for nearly a month on the expansive and apparently unchecked practice of taxpayer-financed vehicles. Do you think this state vehicle story sticks to Governor Mike Beebe? Is it something that Republican Jim Keat can get some traction from? Jason, I pose you the question first.
Well, Keat has certainly been fortunate in the timing of the story. The story just continually trickling out. Seems like a new story is coming out almost every other day. That has helped Keat. It's created an advantage, created an opportunity for him. The one thing that Governor Beebe does have going for him is he paid taxes on his vehicle when he was Attorney General, and that was some time ago. So that does help him as far as the storyline goes, but the timing of it has really created an opportunity for Keat.
Yeah, what do you think, Blake?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it certainly plays nicely into a Republican narrative that spending is out of control all over the country. I also think it's a little too convenient for Jim Keat. The state fleet grew substantially under Governor Mike Huckabee, and Jim Keat didn't have anything to say about it then. So I think now the fact that he's bringing up the fact that there is a state fleet and that somehow Mike Beebe is solely responsible for that is not only intellectually dishonest, it's also a little too late. He should have been criticizing his friend Mike Huckabee, who actually endorsed him for governor.
All right, Jason, I'll give you a rebuttal on that one.
Well, I think Blake makes a good point. I mean, certainly the size of government has grown for not only during Governor Beebe's administration, but under Governor Huckabee's administration as well. Keat is actually running on a platform of reducing the size of that state government, whether it was under a Republican administration or under a Democrat administration. He's running against the size of government, not just against a partisan issue.
Let's move on to down-ballot races. Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of State, Land Commissioner. You've got the vehicle drama, this sour national political mood for Democrats. Blake, I'll ask you first, is this political environment, do you think it's ripe for Republican upsets in Arkansas, or does it just make the races closer than the normal 60-40 margins that we've seen?
Yeah, I mean, Roby, I think you have to look at the overall demographics. I mean, registered Democrats outnumber Republicans about 2-1, although there's a growing number of independents in the state of Arkansas who you have to think are going to look at each race individually. Still, Democrats have had a lot of success at the constitutional level statewide. I don't think there's anything about any of the Republican candidates thus far that is going to shift that trend. I think and Jason's talked about this a lot, if there is a rising national tide for Republicans, that's going to have a trickle-down effect. If John Bozeman is very successful in November, that's going to impact Jim Keat and Mark Darr and Mark Martin and other people on the ballot. Is it enough to get them over the hump, though, to victory? At this point, I doubt it. They're still way too unestablished and really haven't been able to set themselves apart from their Democratic opponents.
And Jason, what do you think? Is the environment ripe for Republican upsets?
It's definitely ripe for it, Roby. The Gallup poll that came out this week for the first time showed more people in Arkansas identified with the Republican Party than the Democrat Party. That's probably the first time that's been the case in the history of the state. I think it's going to be the first time Republicans actually have an advantage having a Republican and having the R after their name on the ballot. That's going to create an opportunity for them. Now, people don't vote generically. People vote for the candidates. They're going to look at who's running in this race, and they're going to vote for who they think will do the best job. But Republicans have a leg up, I think, for the first time in many, many years.
Well, State Treasurer Martha Schaffner received one of the blackest eyes in this controversy involving state vehicles. She originally said she was entitled to a state car, and she complained, I think somewhat jokingly, that she didn't have a manservant to drive her around like the governor did. She apologized, she backtracked on those comments. It did, however, draw her a Green Party opponent, former Representative Bobby Tullis. Jason, do you think that there's any way that a Green Party candidate knocks off this Democratic incumbent?
If they ever could, they'll do it this time. I think Republicans are kicking themselves for not nominating someone to run for that slot. He definitely has an opportunity. I think Martha's probably the most vulnerable constitutional officer that's running for re-election this year. If the Green Party is going to pick up a single race, it'll be that race.
Blake, what do you think? Is there any way a Green Party candidate knocks off a Democratic incumbent in this election year?
You know, it's tough. I mean, Roby, the power of incumbency is great. Martha Schaffner did very well in 2006 when she ran statewide. She has a lot of name ID. You have to wonder, 3-4 months from now, how much traction the Carr story will still have. I mean, the burden is certainly on her opponent to keep that story alive and to generate some momentum. But remember, we're talking about a state treasurer's race. We're talking about a race that is very far down the ticket. I think a lot of people are used to voting for Martha Schaffner. I think there are going to be a lot of people in November whose minds are elsewhere than on the Carr issue. So if this is indicative of further campaign hiccups, sure. But I think one or two other things have to go wrong for Martha Schaffner before we can really consider her to be truly vulnerable.